Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Businessweek. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine, plus global business, finance, and tech news. The Bloomberg Businessweek podcast with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec from Bloomberg Radio.
Never give up, give it your all, keep your eye on the ball.
We are definitely keeping our eye on the ball here at the U.S. Open. I'm also keeping my nose on whatever that is. French fry smell?
Interesting. Interesting you went there. I brought Carol French fries yesterday. Something you have to know about Carol Massar is she has never met a French fry she didn't love. It's like her secret snack.
I even dip them in mayonnaise. That's the French
did not
influence.
know about that.
So yummy.
So there were some pretty good fresh French fries yesterday here at the U.S. Open. Brought her some. Hey, we're talking about food because I love talking about food. You know what's more expensive than it was last year?
Honeydews?
Yeah. $23 each, up from $22 last year.
What's up with that? Melons?
Inflation. Yeah.
Okay. So kind of a perfect segue to talk about the Fed Reserve's preferred measure. I have not had any honeydews, I promise, not yet. The Fed's preferred measure of underlying U.S. inflation, which we got earlier this morning. So this was a focal point heading into the Labor Day holiday weekend. It rose at a mild pace, and household spending picked up in July, reinforcing policymakers' plan to start cutting interest rates next month. It was interesting. We talked earlier, right, on Bloomberg Intelligence, how this might have felt a little bit like a Goldilocks economy, or more evidence of it. Molly Smith is Bloomberg News economics editor, and she joins us here on site at the U.S. Open. So good to have you here with us.
So amazing to be here. Our annual tradition.
I know, and it's a good one. It's a really good one. We're going to talk tennis in a moment. The report, it feels like it's just all falling into place. How do you see it?
So, yeah, I mean, this is obviously, of course, what you would want to see if we are going to talk about taking a soft landing of the economy, for inflation to be moderating, for consumers to keep spending, and that's exactly what the recipe would be. Just some cautionary note, though, to keep in mind is that, you know, what a lot of people were flagging about this report with regards to consumer spending is that a lot of it really reflected the rebound in auto sales after the cyber attack in June, and that how disruptive that was for the industry. Outside of that, it was a little bit more mixed, and of course looking at the income growth measures and the saving rates dropping down.
Not great. That
doesn't bode well for consumer spending going forward. And we also got the University of Michigan data later in the morning looking at measures of consumer finances, also feeling very stretched there, which could also pose a risk to spending going forward.
I know you're focused on the macro, but I got to bring in this headline that we just heard from Amy Morris, just crossing the Bloomberg terminal. Goldman Sachs set to lay off over 1,300 workers. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. They're planning to cut between 3 to 4% of its workforce. Typically, the Journal's Lauren Thomas writes, Goldman aims to trim between 2% and 7% of its workforce annually based on various performance factors. When you see a headline like that as an economics editor, do your spidey senses start to tingle at all with what could be going on?
I mean, especially because the word of the land has really been that layoffs are very low. So when you see that this is happening at a company that we all know about, of course you're like, what's going on here? I mean, we do know that Goldman, so several of the other banks have been laying off workers recently in different batches, you know, that they had overhired a lot, you know, in the past couple of years. So I think a lot of people, this seems to be looked at generally as more a moderating of the workforce rather than a wholesale cutting of it. I mean, of course, I haven't read the story yet, but that seems to be what a lot of the vibe is. But more broadly, where we have seen more of the struggle in hiring has been in white-collar professions, and this has been where you would expect right now to see more of the layoffs happening.
I find it interesting because we've had conversations with Gina Martin Adams about bank earnings in general, that has been a standout. So I feel like, you know, the financial sector has performed, and yet you're still seeing some trimming of the workforce. And as you said, it's not a case that we've heard layoffs in general. We've heard companies maybe not hiring as aggressively, but they haven't been laying off workers. I also feel like you and I keep talking to people who say, we used to get 1 or 2 resumes for a job. Now we're getting 40, like huge jumps. To me, it says there's a shift, and people coming out of college having a tough time finding jobs.
It is definitely a tough job market to work in right now. And it like pains me to say that in a way, because when you look at the numbers, it really doesn't feel that way. When you still have a pace of hiring that's well over 100,000 jobs a month, that the unemployment rate, yes, has been going up, but still is historically low, that wage gains are still positive. It's hard to square that with this is still a tough job market, but I think the way to reconcile it is that what I tell my friends is that it's not a job market where I would quit my job voluntarily if I didn't have something else lined up. Experiencing what it's like, even if you just wanted to like casually spit out your resume and see what other options are out there, the amount of ghosting that is still happening and how many weeks, months can go by without hearing something. I mean, when we talk to job seekers, this is regular back that it's just been a brutal environment out there.
The statistics don't show that at all.
And that's what's very frustrating too, that like I think what I've really learned a lot from my job in like squaring the economic statistics with the real world when I post about some of these things on LinkedIn and other social media, and you see the comments, and I don't feel like I'm being attacked, but I hear like these people are almost like yelling like the numbers are lying. This is not the real lived experience. Like this is a horrible economy. Like people are feeling like so stretched thin in every which way. And yeah, I can imagine if you are somebody who feels that way and you hear people like us saying, you know, inflation's moderating, like this is Goldilocks, everything's great, it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. Also, serious political implications ahead of the presidential election. We'll hear the candidates talking even more, I think, in the coming weeks about the economy. Before we let you go, we're talking tennis, Molly.
Absolutely.
That's why we're here. You follow this like nobody else. What's been on your radar this year? Who should we be watching? What shocked you?
Who you are excited about?
Oh, I mean, last night, of course, the upset with Alcaraz was just, I challenge anybody who had that on their bingo card, please tell me. I certainly did not see that coming, especially from, I'll say his name again, if you guys hadn't heard it before, Boudway van de Sandschulp from the Netherlands. This guy's had a horrible year, was contemplating retiring going into this tournament, and man, I hope this helps him turn it around. He was a top almost 20 player a couple years ago, so what a win for him, even if his face doesn't show it. He's one of those guys who doesn't really give you a whole lot to work with. But that was fascinating last night. A lot of great Americans in action today. I'm going to try to see Shelton and Tiafoe after this.
Who do you think is going to win that match?
Oh, man. I mean, I think Ben has a bit more firepower coming into it, but Tiafoe has really turned his season around when he got a new coach in the middle of the year, and just love to see that. You know, he's really had a tough time since he was in the semis here a couple years ago and just has had a bit of a lackluster result since then.
That's when he lost to Alcaraz.
Yes, I mean, that was an incredible match. He broke into the top 10 then and just has fallen a bit by the wayside since then, but he had a great run up to this tournament, reaching the finals in Cincinnati. This could be really huge for him. So I mean, look, you love to see any American win, though, right?
On the women's side of things, is it all about Coco?
I would say it's it's really Sabalenka's tournament to lose, and she's going to be playing later tonight. I think she's really the big favorite right now. Would not be surprising to see the two of them make another deep run like they did last year. Yeah, I mean, I hate to see Rybakina pull out again. This is the number 4 player in the world, and who's really just struggled with her health so much. I mean, this is like the at least 8th tournament she's pulled out of this year because of some kind of injury or illness, and I just hope that whatever's going on with her gets better, because when she is playing, she is unstoppable. So it's really hard to see.
I am just 30 seconds. Is there anybody out there that you see is possibly like another Serena or something? I hate to say that because I feel like there's athletes like that are, once in a generation or something, but I don't know.
I mean, it's so much pressure. I mean, of course, like Coco would be like the obvious candidate to say that right now just because of her age and what she's already accomplished. But I love her attitude about it. I think, she still recognizes there's so much improvement to be done, and she's taking the steps. And I love her coach, too. So, Brad Gilbert, if you hear me, big fan.
All right. Good stuff, as always. She's got some fun things on social media. We're going to talk about that maybe with John Wertheim a little bit later on. So good. This is a tradition, an annual tradition we always look forward to. Molly, have
Likewise.
fun. Have fun watching. Molly Smith, economics editor at Bloomberg News, on site with us here at the U.S. Open.
Okay, from tennis to the NFL. You recall earlier this week, Carol, NFL owners voted to allow private equity firms to buy stakes in their franchises. It's a move expected to attract billions in fresh capital while boosting team valuations that, come on, had already been surging.
Yeah, absolutely. Private equity is interested, folks, in another area as well, other stuff. In a Bloomberg Businessweek story, Bloomberg's Ira Boudway writes about how private equity has set its sights on the $30 billion youth sports industry, which is like, whoa. Here with more in his story. It's also a personal story. Is Bloomberg News Business of Sports reporter Ira Boudway. He's back in our Bloomberg studio, Interactive Broker studio, back at Bloomberg headquarters.
Ira, good to have you with us this afternoon. Can you start with the personal angle, your personal connection to this story?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys are doing this weekend, but I will be watching my daughter play soccer in a tournament, and that's what I do with most of my weekends, watch one of my two kids play baseball or soccer or one of the sports they play. So this story kind of springs from my own experience. I was up in Cooperstown this summer watching my 12-year-old son play baseball at one of these tournaments that brings in thousands of 12-year-olds every summer, and the other tournament down the road, Cooperstown All-Star Village, just so happens to have been bought recently by David Dietze and Josh Harris, two private equity billionaires who have formed a company with multiple leagues and tournaments and camps that they call Unrivaled Sports, and they're part of this big wave of new investment and consolidation in the industry.
Can I say that when I first read your headline, I'm like, uh-oh, only because private equity, and I think about their ownership of veterinarians and vets. I think about healthcare. Like, we've got the stories out there, right, of private equity comes in and it doesn't always go so well. So tell us about the impact. What are they doing? And are they doing this about, juicing returns for investors, or that's really not the case here?
Yeah,
Yet.
that was kind of what I wanted to know. Was this another sort of nursing homes and real estate and all these things that private equity has come in and arguably made things worse for consumers? Is that what we're going to get here? And in youth sports, there's a particular problem already of it being expensive and exclusive and pressurized and not really about sort of the fun and the social and emotional learning that you want to get out of it for kids. So that was what I brought to it. I wanted to kind of hear their case for what they plan to do. In the case of Unrivaled, I think calling it private equity is maybe a little bit unfair, because these are investments where they didn't raise a fund and there's no promised exit or return, and they plan to hold them, they say, for a long time. So what they want to do at Unrivaled with their various assets is expand. They basically want to bring in capital and talent and make them bigger and better. And instead of maybe a program that serves 400 kids, they want to make it serve 800 kids. So in the case of Cooperstown All-Star Village, they bought another 66 acres next to their site in Oneonta, New York, and they're going to double it, over time. So that's what they say they're about in this case, but they're also not the only ones getting into the business and private equity. And some of these are your traditional private equity firms that, need to seek an exit and maximize profit.
Hey, Ira, let's take a step back here and sort of like help explain to us in the next minute that we have, or 2 minutes we have with you, how we got to this place with youth sports. I mean, I thought youth sports a few generations ago were about kicking a ball around, team building. Maybe, a dad is one of the coaches on the team, or a mom is a coach on one of the team. When did money become such a big part of it?
It's been a few forces working together. I think part of it is just social pressures have taken both the unsupervised sport away. We just don't allow kids to do that kind of thing anymore. And, two parents working, the dad volunteer coach is also increasingly untenable. And so you've got in their place these travel teams that are professionally coached. And then you have just this desire to get kids scholarships or into elite schools. And so sports have become this sort of less about what you're doing right now and how you're enjoying it, and more about how it helps you get to that brass ring or that next step. And that means that parents are willing to spend on coaching and on equipment and on travel and everything else. And so that has made it a rather than recreation, a business.
Hey, just real quickly, just got about 30 seconds. My concern is that money, once again, is going to make it these kind of opportunities for those who can afford it, and then cut out those where sometimes someone who was from a poorer background, to be quite blunt, had an opportunity to rise up courtesy of sports. Just quickly. Yeah,
I mean, this is not a good way to develop and identify talent, to use basically wealth as a way to find the kids who get to play. So just in terms of, competing, you really want to expand access and not make it more exclusive.
Well, it's a great read. There's so much fun detail in there, and it's like one of those, who knew that this was going on, although it doesn't surprise me.
Hey, private equity will find a way.
Yes.
Ira Boudway, Business of Sports reporter at Bloomberg News. Check out his Bloomberg Businessweek story at Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg Terminal.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast. Catch us live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern. Listen on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. Or watch us live on YouTube.
U.S. Open has always been a place to see and be seen in a big way. If you just check out some of those at the courtside. And I know when we go to watch matches, or over the past year, especially if you do a night match, a really popular one, a big one, the cameras will move around and all of a sudden you're seeing, a celeb.
They always know where the celebs are sitting, don't they?
Yeah, and you know how many times they've come on us? 0. That's the way it rolls. It's okay. I'm good with that.
Hey, we actually know a little bit about this because our own Bloomberg News senior reporter, Gillian, who is a fan of tennis, plays tennis. She's back here at the U.S. Open. She wrote about what is the hottest celebrity ticket out there right now. Gillian, good to see you. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so before we get to who's been here, which include Jessica Biel, Questlove, Alec Baldwin, and more, how do celebrities get connected with seats here?
So I
it's
think
like a whole thing, right?
Yeah, it's a whole thing. Right now, everyone sort of, talks to their own team, speaks to their agents. The agents put an ask into the USTA, and there are just so many sponsors here. So if the USTA president's box is full, there's like Moet. Is that how you pronounce it? Moet or Moet? Depends.
Yeah.
Depends on if you're
That's what
from
I learned
France
yesterday.
or America.
Moet Chandon,
Emirates. You've got Polo Ralph Lauren, but Dobel Tequila. Everyone's just scattered around Arthur Ashe Stadium. So John Rahm, the live golfer, his live golf team is sponsored by this tequila brand. So he rocked in on Monday, Tuesday. Everyone just sort of, calls, makes the ask, and then shows up when their sponsors can fit them in.
So they're not buying tickets?
No, these are all free tickets.
Oh, come on.
So
they can afford the expensive tickets. Why aren't they paying for the tickets?
What about us plebes here, right?
We paid for the tickets.
Wait, has tennis always been so popular among celebrities?
So right now, the view is that there's like a cultural apex. Sorry about my voice. Challenges, the movie starring Zendaya, grossed $94 million this year. So that's, been huge for tennis. But during the pandemic, there was just a huge boost in amateur players, not only in the US, but just globally. So that there's just a lot of attention on the sport. Luxury brands have started to capitalize on it. You've seen Yannick Sinner, the world number one.
Yeah.
He's, an ambassador for Gucci. You've got Alcaraz, who unfortunately lost last night. He's an ambassador of Louis Vuitton. So is Naomi Osaka. So a lot of these folks are building their brands outside the court, and people are paying attention.
It seems like other sports like basketball have really in the past attracted this courtside celebrity.
Yeah.
Is it tennis a hotter ticket now?
Arguably so, especially because there's only 14 days here at Arthur Ashe, right? So basketball, we're looking to it. There's 41 home games per team. That's so many that, celebrities can pop in. Knicks and Nets give Jay-Z high fives and his Empire State of Mind hit. But no, now the basketball players are the ones that are courtside here.
Well, you mentioned
So cool.
Jay-Z. I mean, didn't they also, in terms of the USTA leaning on culture, in terms of, I think they've got a new theme song, and tell us a little bit about that, how they are embracing kind of the celebrity moment too.
Yeah, so they understand that they can leverage celebrities and sort of the pop culture interest to enhance, the US Open, extend the reach of the tournament. So they actually teamed up with Alicia Keys' musical Hell's Kitchen to establish a brand new theme song, which I think we're hearing at changes of ends and at other times, and on ESPN actually as well.
And they play music in between, right? Like when there's breaks in terms of matches. So there is kind of a fun party atmosphere.
Yeah, there's a party atmosphere, the DJs, DJing the tracks, and that's leading to, unique moments. I think there was a moment in 2015 where Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake danced to Beyonce's All the Single Ladies. And the USTA team was saying that was the content piece that went the furthest in social media.
Wow.
It was kind of natural. They were just like, all the single ladies.
Wait, who was that? That was Justin Timberlake?
And Jimmy Fallon.
Well, don't you remember the SNL skit, right? That's the one where Justin Timberlake dressed up in the Beyonce, leotard and heels.
I do not remember that one.
Really?
Yeah.
So I don't know Oasis, but you don't know that?
You should go around saying that.
How do they manage the celebrities? Because, as you said, it's 14 days, limited seats. There are those matches celebrities want to be at and be seen at. How does the USTA manage that?
So interestingly, they were saying opening night and the finals weekend is when it's usually been, the most interest, but now it's staggered out throughout the whole 14 days. They actually have hired they outsource it because it's just gotten too much. But yeah, they outsource it and they
you deal with it.
Yeah, you deal with it, and then from there on. But interestingly, last year was a record. It was more than 400 celebrities, and this year they expect to break that record.
I mean, how great is this for the USTA's business?
I mean, it's great. It's free publicity.
Exactly.
Like, what could they ask more for?
Especially if you have some of these celebs with their own TikTok and Instagram accounts posting where they are, what they're doing. You can only imagine what that does for demand for tickets.
Yeah, or even the USTA post it themselves, right? Like, they can capture, Lin-Manuel Miranda, like, watching a point open-mouthed, like...
Yeah, right? It's like pretty incredible.
Yeah, everyone's like locked in.
I have found myself like when watching a certain match, or I think I remember it was like Gayle King, and I don't remember whether it was Justin Bieber or something, and it's just like kind of cool as you're watching and the camera scans. I am also curious about, the celebs are really cool, but I'm also curious about, JP Morgan's been a big sponsor for a long time. I mean, the financial world really loves this thing too.
Yeah, so we'll see them, they're here quietly these few weeks. Like, some have suites for the entire 2 weeks, but most of them will be here. Semi-finals next Friday, women's final on Saturday, which is presented by JP Morgan, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Sunday is the men's final.
Okay, there are some celebrities who are known tennis fanatics. Ben Stiller comes to mind. He's like, I've seen him at like exhibition matches that I've gone to in Manhattan, like 15 years ago, and he's sitting courtside.
Yeah,
like he'll go to as much tennis as he can.
He's a huge Rafa fan as well, which is, I guess, sad for him because his guy's not here. But yeah, he was at Wimbledon this year. I think he was at Roland Garros. Like, he's everywhere, here, there, everywhere. And then Anna Wintour is obviously a huge tennis fan.
Well, that's who I was thinking of, right? She's always, and who she's got sitting next to her, it's just kind of fascinating. It's interesting too, in a year where we thought maybe without Serena it would be very different, but I was kind of floored when we got here, or at least when I got here yesterday, like how crowded it was and how much excitement there was, and just the matches, even the side matches, like people are really excited. And as you said, there's some younger players, maybe not all household names, but people are really into it, the celebrities as well.
Yeah, the grounds are really full. There are a ton of Americans doing extremely well, both on the men's and women's side. So, this is a great time to be at the US Open.
What's a box go for? Like, so the celebrities are in a box, or what are those seats that they're getting that
so the ones
we would have to pay what?
The box is a different thing, but for courtside seats, I looked yesterday to buy a comparative seat in the lower bowl. I think it was like $1,500 to $1,700 yesterday in the day session, and probably over $2,000 for the night session.
And this is, the first week of the tournament, so we're not even talking, getting to the finals.
Yeah, which can be $10,000 for like a very, very courtside seat.
Oh. It's just unbelievable. And, again, that money not necessarily going to the USTA. This is being resold.
Well, yeah, the numbers yesterday were resale numbers, but the USTA does sell some seats for $10,000.
I was thinking about, it's funny because we realize
supply and demand.
That's always how it works, right? It always comes down to that. As we said earlier, the USTA has got to love like the celebrities and whether they're posting and so on and so forth. But because they outsource like the managing of it, I guess they're comfortable to talk about it, because I always think when there's an event and there's celebrities involved, people are like very sketchy, not sketchy, but just delicate in how they manage it.
Yeah, I think this is different because the celebrities are here, and part of, the free ticket is that they kind of agree to, the TV knows where they are. The Jumbotron literally scans them at the change of ends, and they'll like, Tay Diggs, I think, was here last night, and he gave the camera a wave. Like, it's all quid pro quo a little bit.
Yeah, it is. Very much so.
I wonder if there are also like celebrities incognito who don't want to be seen. They want to come here and they just want to watch tennis and not be bothered.
So that would be Leonardo DiCaprio, who
Seriously?
always tries to hide. Yeah, we saw him last year. I forget which suite he was in, but he was wearing a mask, and then he eventually took it off.
Well, I think there's a picture that includes him in your story.
He's actually
and I was looking at the picture. I'm like, where is he in this picture?
He's actually.
Look at that. Do you see that?
He actually is in this picture.
I was looking. I see Zach Braff, but I don't see Leonardo. Oh, there he is. Yeah, his hands in front of his face.
He is a little bit incognito.
Yeah. He just wants to watch some tennis. He could do that, though, not in the celeb box, right? And
yeah, he could do it in the stands, and then nobody would know.
Until you're like...
The person sitting right next to him.
Until you're like, you're next to him, and you're like, what's going on with that? Gillian Tan, thank you so much. Really love it. This is so much fun. She is our senior reporter at Bloomberg News. Check out her story on the Bloomberg and at Bloomberg.com. We got a headline crossing when it comes to Tesla and its robo-taxi plans.
Yeah, the company aims to unveil its highly anticipated robo-taxi at an event at Warner Brothers Discovery's movie studio in the Los Angeles area. This is according to people familiar with the matter. The EV company targeting a reveal of the purpose-built robo-taxi on October 10th. at the Burbank facility, the people said, asking not to be identified because the information is private. Remember, Carol?
Yeah.
This was supposed to happen in August. We broke the news a couple months ago that it wasn't happening in August. Now, happening in October.
It's a famous lot. Batman movies, TV show Friends have all been filmed there, so we'll see what Elon Musk brings to us. All right, you are listening and watching Bloomberg Radio.
You're listening to the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast. Listen live each weekday starting at 2 p.m. Eastern on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. You can also listen live on Amazon Alexa from our flagship New York station. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, everybody, we are just about 20 minutes away from the closing bell, getting ready to wrap up the day, the week, the month of August.
And the first week of the U.S. Open.
And the first week of the U.S. Open, which is where we find ourselves. So let's get to it, because it's been really fun for us to have guests who, can talk about the Bloomberg world and trading and investing, but also love tennis.
And one of those guests is here with us right now, David Dietze. He joins us each and every year from the U.S. Open. He's managing principal and senior investment strategist at Peapack Private Wealth Management, $11.5 billion in assets under management. He took a break from Arthur Ashe Stadium where he was watching.
He gets the
Ben
award
Shelton
for the
Frances
day.
Tiafoe.
He gets the award.
By the way,
no doubt.
Shelton won the first set. Tiafoe is down 2-1 in the second
so
set.
I have the markets up on my screen, and Tim has the U.S. Open.
Well, that's why I'm using your screen for the markets.
This
and my
is our
screen for
yin
the
and yang,
scores,
isn't it not?
Yeah. David, how are you? Good to see you.
Excellent. So happy to be out here and great to be with you guys.
Even though you're missing a little bit of tennis, you're happy to be here.
We saw a wonderful match. Coco won down the first set, came back to win for 3 sets. We're big Coco fans. We're big Ben Shelton fans, too, so we'll see how that works out.
What happened with her serve at the end of the match? Those 2 double faults in a row at match point.
You know, the other night she had 9 double faults, and her serve was really struggling with it. With her, and then she practiced a lot, she said, after her win. I think she did better today. She came through when she had to.
Yeah, sometimes you have, I guess, a bad day or a bad couple of days, but she definitely rallied and came back in a big way.
Her
right?
opponent was hitting all out. I've never seen such hard shots, so I actually think she was lucky to pull out the win.
What?
Good stuff.
Well,
I mean, it's been great tennis here.
You know, we keep asking everybody, right, because it's always been for so many years about Serena. What do you think as, obviously every sport has different cycles, it evolves, new players come in. How are you thinking about kind of some of the younger, newer players?
Well, I mean, Coco's only 20, so,
baby.
She's got that the next Williams sister, right?
Yeah.
And, of course, I think Ben Shelton's only about 21 years old, too. So we've got some young and up-and-coming stars, and it just takes a couple to reignite the spirit that we saw with the Williams here in tennis, of course, with Tiger over in golf. So that's what we're hoping for.
I think it's happening already. I really do.
I think you're right.
I
you
think
know this better than I do.
It just feels like it. I mean, with these, for men's tennis, the Americans have been absent from it for such a long period of time. And to have a couple Americans who are so strong right now is big on the men's side. The women's side, I feel like never took a break after Serena and Coco was there.
Yeah.
The men do need to pick up the pace. The last time a man won here from the United States is 21 years ago.
Wow.
And so we need to get back on our horse.
Gone are those days of, Michael Chang, Jim Courier, Andre Agassi, Pete Sampras. That was an era.
For a while there, we won 8 out of 11 years, and now we've had this dry spell. So let's hope for some of these younger guys.
McEnroe, Connor. I'm going way back. Just saying.
Should we talk markets a little bit?
Let's go back. Let's talk markets. It's interesting. It's mellow today. I'm not surprised. Right ahead of the Labor Day holiday. This market feel okay to you? Do you feel like it's going to push lower, push higher, or mark time maybe until we get through the election or through the first Fed meeting?
Well, I mean, in the beginning of the month, of course, we had that 3% sell-off. Japan fell 12%.
Right.
Some people really panicked there. It was a big
Oh my
growth
God.
scare.
People were saying, what? We need emergency rate moves, several of them, 50, whatever.
75
basis points.
Come on.
People were ready to jump off buildings.
That was crazy.
And now even the NASDAQ may end up August in the green, definitely the S&P and the Dow. So it's like a whole different end of the month here. But
how do you make sense of that? That's a big swing in sentiment.
Yeah. So, I think the number one thing is basically Jerome Powell put his pull in the sand and said mission accomplished on inflation.
Yeah.
We're focused on the labor market. We're focused on growth. Time is here for a rate cut. And I'm looking at it. I'm saying, well, okay, we still have positive job creation. Earnings should be up as much as 14% next year. Interest rates are coming down. You're getting less than 4% in the 10-year. Do we need all this fiscal stimulus? But the fact of the matter is, every day, people like me come to the office and say, what can I get on the 10-year Treasury? What can I get in the market? And as those interest rates go down, you're going to be pushing into the market. And, of course, you've got positive growth with earnings.
So is that where the trillions of dollars on the sidelines in money markets go?
Well, they're talking about $6 billion in money market funds that,
$6 trillion.
$6 trillion,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone said, well,
I didn't know if it all of a sudden it drained in a big way. Did I miss a headline? I know I've had some days off. No, just kidding.
It's a volatile situation. But seriously, I mean, so people are talking about, a lot of people have that money in the money markets. They're getting 5%. Why take the volatility and all the hassle with the stocks when you can get that 5%? But now, of course, as interest rates start to come down, we're already seeing now the 2-year Treasury is almost on parity now with the 10-year, under 4%. And so eventually people are going to say, honey, I think we have to do something because we can no longer get to 5%. Let's get into some dividend-paying stocks. And I think that could provide a tailwind. Having said that, that full $6 trillion will not move into stocks. There's a lot of money that will stay in money market no matter what.
Let's talk about some stocks that you like. Boeing is one. We talk about it a lot, and still the woes. Stocks down almost 34% so far this year. I mean, we could go into all the problems, but the latest is getting the astronauts, back out of the space station.
They're there till 2025.
It was supposed to be, was it a couple of days? Why Boeing?
Yes, there's a lot of moving pieces here, but basically you've got a duopoly in the world practically between Boeing and Airbus. They control practically the whole commercial fleet. And one thing we know is going to happen over the next 20, 30 years is the demand for aviation services is going to outpace GDP. And really, you got that duopoly. So you got one or the other. What I keep looking at is the orders that Boeing has, over $500 billion of orders. That shows confidence among the world's airlines.
Is it confidence, or those orders have already been placed? My understanding is Airbus can't come in.
They're sold out till the end of the decade.
People can't say,
A320.
I understand that, but I wonder about new orders. Is Boeing going to have some problems down the road?
Well, again,
more problems.
The demand for aviation is there. If they just fulfill the existing orders, are in good shape. And the question is, where else do you go? Okay, Boeing has had safety problems, no question about it. But does that mean you go with a lesser name outside this country?
Like,
you don't mean Airbus.
Bombardier, for example.
But they don't even have a plane that matches a 737 or an A320. I mean, that narrow body market is dominated by Airbus.
So
and
we've got new management over at Boeing.
And the
they
wide
just
body
need
market
to satisfy
too,
the FAA on the safety issues, and you got to get that production up and they're in good shape.
30 seconds. You talk new management. Intel you like. News today, maybe splitting off its foundry. They're working with their bankers to kind of figure out what's next. Maybe it needs new management. What do you like about this company? You got to be quick, about 25 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's still number one in terms of chips for PCs and servers, right? Also, it's almost like a U.S. institution for national security. We want to bring production here. To not support Intel in its time of need by the U.S. government would be the wrong thing. They're getting serious. The stock is down 60%. Year to date, they're down 28% this month. They're up about 9% today on news that they're getting serious about perhaps splitting apart the company, backing off some of the capital expenditures, getting back on track. the American government fully behind them.
We got to run. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
David Dietze over at Peapack Private Wealth Management. This is Bloomberg.
This is the Bloomberg Businessweek podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.